What's inside this box might change how you drive your RC car forever, or maybe some of your cars. It's a new product from FlySky, and these guys make radio systems and accessories. And this is a new accessory that I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before. I've driven a lot of RC cars, boats, flown some planes. It's a steering wheel gimbal. I'll have the part number down below. It's got this long part number, but it's a pretty interesting option for steering cars and boats and maybe other unique RCs. It goes onto a stick radio system, and I can really see this opening up a lot of options for things like scale trucks and even four-wheel steer crawlers. That's what I'm going to install it in to show you guys how it works. But let's get this thing out of the box so you can see this. This is pretty cool. It looked a little gimmicky at first, but they give you an instruction manual on how to install it. It works in a couple radio systems. I'll have that information in the video description below. It works in the FSST8. This radio right here, which is what I'm going to install it in, but check that out. It's a mini steering wheel. So it just goes in place of one of the stick gimbals on the stick radio system, and you can actually steer it just like you would steer a steering wheel. So obviously it's going to require a little disassembly. I'll show you how that works in a minute, but it just screws right in. You're going to plug the wiring harness in the back. But this will allow you to either, steer it by hand, by wheel, or they got this little, what is that, a suicide knob? I don't remember what they call it when they've got the pivot on the bottom there to steer whatever direction you need. From what I've read, it also has turn signal LED lights under it that light up. And this is a reset button where the horn is. So I'm not sure exactly what that does yet. I'm going to have to fire everything up to do it. So I'm going to get this installed in the radio system and then show you how it works on a four-wheel steer car. This could be really good. Installing the gimbal is fairly easy. First up, you're going to want to remove the back cover from the radio system. There's a couple screws on the back. Once you pop the back cover off, there's a plug that you'll want to remove just so you have easier access to the radio system. And then you're going to want to remove the gimbal on the right side when looking at the back. The gimbal will be on the left side when you're looking at the face of the radio system. This is how they have it set up from the factory. If you want to have it on the right side when looking at the face of the radio, you are going to have to do a little bit of rewiring, and there's a diagram in the instructions which I didn't quite get, so I left it where they showed in the instruction manual. But you're just going to unscrew the gimbal, slide it out, unplug it, and then you're going to have to remove the wheel. It's just a little Phillips screw on the back, and then you'll be able to slide the gimbal in, screw it back in place with the 4 screws, plug it back in, plug in that back cover, and reinstall it. Then you move on to installing the receiver. It's an 8-channel receiver that the ST8 radio comes with. I wanted to try it on this 4-wheel steer Capra, so to hook it up, I put the front steering servo into channel 1, throttle's channel 2, just like normal, and then for the rear steer, I put it into channel 4, and now I could operate the rear steer with the steering wheel. Time for the test, guys. All right, so I have the rear steer all set up. As you can see, it's swinging back and forth. Now, one of the things is when I first turned it on, it just had very minimal initial steer, and I actually had to swing the steering wheel all the way around to get full steering. So what I did to just change that up is I went into the Steering Expo. So now I have a lot of initial steer, well, at least half the steering throw within a quarter of the wheel turn, and then for full steering, it's about 3/4 of a turn, and that's a lot better than it was 1.5 turns with the positive Expo. So that works out pretty well. Probably going to want to do that for anything that you're going to be steering with this. And so my front steering is now set up on this gimbal. As you can see, there's the front steering, and it's also throttle. So this is going to be a little bit of a learning curve. And just keep it slow. And there's my rear steer. Oh, this is tricky. There's a lot of movement going on here. All right, so I'm kind of getting used to it. I mean, this is like the first for me. This is me actually trying it for the first time. I really got to set this area up for more rock crawling. Yes, it's a little tricky. I think maybe if the steering and throttle gimbal were over here and this was the actual steering gimbal, again, you would have to rewire it, but I think that might work a little bit better. I think it's all got to depend on what you're using it with. So if you're using it maybe in a tractor trailer, maybe you would want it set up like this, or maybe like a boat, you would want it set up like this. Not sure if it's really got to be like an awesome setup for 4-wheel steer. Might be really cool for the lowrider guys. So I could see some potential here. But yeah, there's definitely a learning curve with all these functions now. Okay guys, I switched things up. I now have the steering gimbal set up on the front servo. And I'm kind of getting it. There we go. It's gonna take a little bit of practice. Now, I don't think it's necessarily the answer for a four-wheel steer crawler, unless you really plan on getting used to it. But I think it'll be cool for like the Tamiya big rigs or some heavy equipment. I still kind of want to steer with the rear steer. That actually works out really well. I think it's an interesting release. Let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. What do you think it would be best used for? Maybe even boats? I think I'm just going to spend the rest of the day getting used to this. If you need a link, I'll have one in the video description below.